All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring Surah Al-Fajr. It's the 89th chapter of the Quran. And let me tell you, this one's pretty powerful. It's all about, getting real with those worldly attachments and preparing for what truly matters, the afterlife.
You know, what really gets me about Surah Al-Fajr is the way it starts. Allah starts off with all these oaths, and they're not like your average everyday oaths either.
Yeah, so tell me more. What are these mysterious oaths, and why do you think they're so important?
Well, the first one is by the dawn. You know that moment when the light breaks through the darkness? It's kind of like a metaphor, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. It's like a reminder that even after the darkest night,
Hmm.
there's always a new beginning, a chance for renewal.
Exactly. And then you have the oath by the 10 nights. There are a few different interpretations of this one, but some scholars connect it to the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, which is, a time for pilgrimage and spiritual reflection.
So it's like Allah's emphasizing how important it is to set aside time for spiritual growth, for connecting to something bigger than ourselves.
Precisely. And then there's the oath by the even and the odd. This one is particularly interesting because it speaks to the balance in creation, day and night, light and darkness, male and female.
It's like Allah's pointing to that intricate order,
Yeah.
that cosmic harmony that we're all a part of.
Exactly. And then finally, there's the oath by the night as it passes. I think this one is really powerful. It reminds us that time is fleeting and that our lives are always moving forward.
So when you put all of these oaths together, they paint this incredible picture of Allah's power and majesty, but also, of our place in this grand cosmic scheme of things. It's like a wake-up call, urging us to pay attention to the signs all around us.
And those signs, those lessons, are actually woven throughout history. The surah goes on to talk about Alad, Thamud, and Pharaoh. Each of these civilizations were powerful and advanced in their own way, but ultimately they faced destruction.
I'm guessing they didn't really get Employee of the Month with Allah. So what went wrong?
Well, the surah highlights their arrogance, the way they oppress the weak, their obsession with worldly wealth and power.
Like say they forgot who was really in charge.
Exactly. They fail to heed the signs that are embedded in creation, the very signs that Allah swore by in those opening oaths. Like, take the Arad, for example. They built this amazing city called Iram. It's described as having these lofty pillars like nothing the world had ever seen before.
Wow, it sounds like they were pretty good architects. But I guess fancy buildings don't really guarantee you a ticket to paradise, do they?
Not really, no. Their architectural skills couldn't save them from the consequences of their actions. They became so consumed by their worldly achievements that they forgot about their accountability to Allah.
It's a classic story of hubris, huh?
It is. And then there were the Thamud, known for carving their homes into mountains.
So they were more into that, like, rustic mountain living vibe.
Hmm.
But I'm guessing even a cool cave dwelling can't really protect you from divine justice.
Unfortunately, no. They also fell into that same trap of transgression, becoming way too attached to things of this world and forgetting about the bigger picture.
It seems like there's a pattern emerging here. Power, wealth, advanced technology. None of that matters if you're not aligned with what's truly important. Which brings us to Pharaoh, the ultimate embodiment of ego and tyranny.
Yeah, Pharaoh is like a stark reminder that even someone who thinks they're a god can be humbled by the true power of Allah. His story is like this cautionary tale about the dangers of arrogance and oppressing others.
It's like the Surah was saying, hey, don't get any ideas. No matter how big you think you are, remember who's really running the show.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Surah Al-Fajr is using all these examples from history to drive home a really powerful point. Worldly power and possessions, they're all fleeting. What really matters is how we live our lives and whether we align ourselves with Allah's guidance. And that's where things get really interesting, because the surah then shifts its focus to human nature and how we react to both the blessings and the hardships in our lives.
Oh, okay. So what does the Surah say about how we handle all those ups and downs?
Well, it points out something that I think we're probably all guilty of sometimes. When things are going well for us, when we have a lot of success, when we have wealth, it's easy to get a little bit, I don't know, puffed up, right? We start thinking, hey, I earned this. I must be pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that subtle shift, or sometimes not so subtle shift, from feeling gratitude to feeling a sense of entitlement. Like we somehow deserve all the good things that are coming our way.
Exactly. And then, on the flip side of that, when we face difficulties, when things get tough, it's easy to spiral into despair, resentment.
Yeah.
We might even start to question Allah's justice, thinking, why me? What did I do to deserve this?
Right. It's like those moments really test our faith
Mm-hmm.
and how we view our relationship with Allah. Are we just fair weather friends? Or are we in it for the long haul, through thick and thin?
That's the whole point. That's
Yeah.
exactly what Surah Al-Fajr is getting at. It's reminding us that both prosperity and adversity, they're both tests from Allah.
So it's not really about the external circumstances themselves. It's more about how we internally respond to them.
You got it. It's about recognizing that both the good and the bad in our lives are from Allah, and they're meant to bring us closer to Him. Prosperity is a test of our gratitude, our humility, while adversity tests our patience and perseverance.
Wow. So basically life is one big pop quiz from Allah. And the real measure isn't our bank account or our status. It's how we handle all those tests. It's what our responses reveal about our hearts.
Exactly. And this actually leads into another powerful message in the surah, which is the criticism of neglecting the vulnerable and the obsession with accumulating wealth.
Right. The surah doesn't mince words when it comes to those who hoard their wealth and turn a blind eye to the suffering of others.
It's like, it's almost a direct contrast to those civilizations that we talked about earlier, who are also so consumed by worldly pursuits. Surah Al-Fajr reminds us that all the wealth we have is a trust from Allah, and we're accountable for how we use it.
So it's about recognizing that our resources, they're meant to be shared. We should use them to make society better, not just for personal gain.
Exactly. And in contrast to those who are always chasing after worldly desires, the surah introduces us to this concept of the reassured soul.
Ooh, okay. Break that down for me. What exactly is a reassured soul? It sounds pretty blissful.
You can think of it as a soul that has found true peace, true contentment, not in, those fleeting possessions or status symbols, but in their relationship with Allah. This is a soul that's unfazed by all the ups and downs of life, because they understand that true fulfillment comes from seeking Allah's pleasure.
That is such a powerful concept. It's a real antidote to all the anxiety and uncertainty that we face in the world. But the surah also doesn't shy away from the reality. That awaits those who choose a different path, does it? I mean, there's some pretty vivid descriptions of the Day of Judgment.
Absolutely. Surah Al-Fajr uses these really powerful images to paint a picture of what that day will be like. The earth being leveled, angels descending in ranks, hell being brought near. It's meant to evoke a sense of awe and urgency, to remind us that this life is temporary, and that we will all be held accountable for our choices.
Yeah. And it's not just about, the fear of punishment, is it? It's about that gut-wrenching regret that the surah describes.
Yeah.
That feeling of wishing you had lived your life differently.
Yeah.
That you had invested more in your hereafter.
Exactly. Imagine standing before your Creator and realizing that all those things you spent your life chasing, the wealth, the status, all those fleeting pleasures, they mean absolutely nothing when you're faced with eternity.
That's a pretty sobering thought. But
Yeah.
it's also a really powerful motivator, right? To live a life of purpose, a life of meaning, to invest in the things that will truly matter on that day.
Exactly. And that's why the surah puts so much emphasis on investing in our hereafter. It's about making choices that will benefit us in the long run, not just in this fleeting world.
So how do we do that? What are some practical steps we can take to live a life that aligns with the message of Surah Al-Fajr?
That's a great question. I think it starts with cultivating a sense of awareness, a sense of mindfulness. We need to always be checking our intentions, asking ourselves, why am I doing what I'm doing? Are my actions motivated by a sincere desire to please Allah? Or am I just looking for some worldly recognition, some kind of reward?
Yeah, so it's about being more intentional, about making choices that align with our values and beliefs. It's about shifting our focus from me to we, from self-preservation to serving others, and from material possessions to spiritual growth.
You got it. And remember those divine oaths we were talking about? The dawn, the night, the passing of time? Well, they're not just there for poetic imagery. They remind us of the cyclical nature of life, just like the sun rises and sets. We also experience these periods of ease and hardship, prosperity and adversity.
It's like the ebb and flow of the tide, that constant change that's woven into the fabric of existence.
Exactly. And the surah is encouraging us to see those challenges, not as punishments or signs that Allah is displeased with us, but as opportunities. Opportunities for growth, purification, and getting closer to Him.
So it's about seeing those difficult moments as tests of our faith, as chances to strengthen our reliance on Allah and to deepen our connection with Him.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the Day of Judgment, the ultimate test. The surah is very clear about how awe-inspiring that day will be.
Yeah. The imagery is so intense, the earth being leveled, angels descending in ranks, hell being brought near. It's a really powerful reminder that this life is temporary, and we're going to be held accountable for everything we do.
Exactly. Imagine that feeling, the realization that all the things you prioritize in this world, all that wealth, the status, those fleeting pleasures, they're all completely meaningless in the face of eternity.
Wow. That's definitely a wake-up call. It reminds us to check our priorities and make sure we're not neglecting what really matters, our relationship with Allah. But the surah also highlights the reward that's waiting for those who live righteously, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about avoiding punishment. It also highlights the amazing reward that awaits those who strive to live a good life. The description of the reassured soul returning to Allah and entering paradise is incredibly beautiful and moving. It paints this picture of ultimate peace, joy, and fulfillment.
Yeah. It's about striving for something much greater, a state of eternal bliss and closeness to our Creator. I think we've really only just scratched the surface of the surah. There's still so much more to unpack and explore.
I completely agree. This is a surah that can really make you think about how you're living your life and what really matters at the end of it all. It's fascinating how Surah Al-Fajr doesn't just focus on those big historical stories or like abstract concepts. It also zooms in on the very human struggles that we all face.
Yeah, it's true. The surah paints such a insightful picture of human nature, almost like a mirror, reflecting our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and it's not always the most flattering reflection, is it?
Right. It calls out those tendencies we have towards arrogance, greed, forgetfulness, things we'd probably rather keep hidden.
I think that's part of what makes it so beautiful, though, right? It's not sugarcoating anything. It's trying to help us understand those parts of ourselves, the parts we don't always want to acknowledge, so that we can actually make better, more conscious choices.
I see what you mean. So it's like a guide to self-awareness, helping us to see those patterns in our behavior, the patterns that might be blocking us from really connecting with Allah and from living a life of purpose.
Exactly. And it even gives us specific examples of that, like how we tend to get arrogant and complacent when things are going well, or, how we spiral into despair and resentment when things get tough.
Yeah. It's like those reactions are just hardwired into us, almost instinctive. It's so easy to fall into those traps without even realizing it.
Which is why the Surah emphasizes the importance of always checking our intentions and seeking refuge in Allah from those negative tendencies.
So it's a call for humility, recognizing that we're not really in control and that we need Allah's guidance and support
Yeah.
to navigate the complexities of life. This kind of brings us back to that idea of the reassured soul, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the peace that comes from surrendering to Allah's will.
You're right. It's about finding that balance between taking care of our responsibilities in this world and nurturing our spiritual aspirations. It's how we can engage with the world in a healthy and productive way without being totally consumed by it.
So it's about recognizing that worldly things have their place, but they shouldn't be what defines us or what we're always chasing after. Our priority should be pleasing Allah and earning His reward. What I love about Surah Al-Fajr is that it doesn't just give us abstract principles. It gives us real, tangible examples of what a righteous life actually looks like in action.
Yes, it talks about honoring orphans, feeding the poor, being mindful of how we use our wealth. These are all really practical ways to live out those values the Surah emphasizes. Compassion, generosity, social responsibility.
Right. And those actions had a ripple effect too, don't they? It's not just about helping others. It's also about purifying ourselves and strengthening our own connection with Allah.
Absolutely. It's recognizing that faith has personal and social dimensions. It's about living in a way that benefits ourselves and those around us. And this brings us to that really powerful theme that runs throughout the entire surah, the Day of Judgment.
Yeah. The surah is very clear about the reality of that day. The imagery is so vivid, the earth being leveled, angels descending, the consequences of our actions being laid bare.
It's a powerful reminder that this life is temporary, and our choices carry eternal weight. It's not just about escaping punishment, it's about understanding that our actions have real consequences.
So we need to be really intentional with how we live our lives and make sure we're investing in what really matters, our relationship with Allah, our connection with others, and making a positive impact on the world.
You said it. And in the midst of all these reminders about accountability, the surah also offers this beautiful message of hope and mercy. It concludes with this really moving description of the reassured soul, returning to Allah and entering paradise.
That image is so comforting and inspiring. It's about more than just escaping punishment. It's about reaching a state of complete peace, joy, and fulfillment in the presence of our Creator.
It's like coming home after a long and difficult journey, finally finding true happiness and contentment. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Surah Al-Fajr, it's important to remember that this isn't just some intellectual exercise. It's about taking these lessons to heart and letting them shape the way we live our lives.
It's about reflecting on our own actions and choices and asking ourselves those tough questions. Am I living in a way that's aligned with the message of this surah? Am I prioritizing the things that truly matter? Am I striving to become the best version of myself? Because this journey of faith, it's ongoing, right? It's a lifelong process of growth and transformation.
And you know what's amazing? Even though Surah Al-Fajr was revealed over 1400 years ago, its message is still so timeless and universal. It speaks to the very core of our human experience, our purpose, our struggles, our desire for connection and fulfillment.
Yeah, it's a message that goes beyond any specific culture or time period. It offers guidance and inspiration to anyone who's searching for truth, peace, and meaning.
That's beautifully put. And on that note, we've come to the end of our deep dive into Surah Al-Fajr. We hope you've enjoyed exploring it with us. It's a surah that can truly guide us, challenge us, and help us to become better versions of ourselves.
Absolutely. We encourage everyone to go back and revisit Surah Al-Fajr often and to really reflect on its wisdom. May it be a source of light and inspiration for you on your own journey of faith. Until next time, may Allah guide us all towards a life of righteousness and grant us the strength and wisdom to live in a way that pleases Him